Welcome to the Massive Passive Show, where you'll hear serious discussions about
All right, here
everything
we go,
real
guys.
estate investors encounter building their portfolios. Many radio shows and podcasts talk about real estate investing, but the hosts of the Massive Passive Show actually do it. Sit back and relax and learn about becoming a massive passive deal maker.
Good morning and happy Easter weekend. This is one of your hosts, James Haney, and I am joined by the one and only Ray Sasser. Good morning, Ray.
Thank you, James. How are you?
I am doing wonderful on this wonderful Saturday morning. Again, welcome to the Massive Passive Show. We're going to be talking today about being a successful investor. Ray was telling me that, he had heard, he was watching some kind of podcast or something on several things that you need to be a successful investor. So we're going to break those down today, as well as go over some of our upcoming events. But before we jump into the show, I do want to acknowledge who the show is brought to you by. And first and foremost, it's Bayou City Tech's Hal Gailey. He's our lifesaver, and he runs the show behind the scenes for us. And then we have Freddie with Guatex Foundations. Always got to have a great foundation company on your team. And then there is Junk King. If you have a house that's got to be cleaned out, these are the guys to call. And then we also have Larry with Lone Star Treesar. If you needed any kind of landscaping or anything to do with trees or tree trimming or removal, Larry's the guy to call.
Last week, he ground down 25 stumps for me. Got out there, got it done, and no muss or fuss.
And where you can find anything that we refer to, and we'll mention this throughout the show, any time that we refer to something that you want more information on or to sign up to one of our meetings or something, is lonestarria.org. And there's links there that will guide you to where you need to go. Again, that's lonestarria.org, and you can get all of our information there. So, Red, let's go ahead and jump into the show and talk about some of these different things that we need to be successful as real estate investors.
Well, just to finish up on the vendor thing, or just add one more thing to it, is at our website, it's massivepassiveshow.com, correct? Or is that changed now?
Well, there's a link to that on lonestarria.org.
Okay, and that's how they can get to all our vendors. We went out there, basically hand-selected all of our vendors, and these are people who we work with every day in our real estate investing business. So if you need a good name for you think of it, they're probably out there. If we don't have them out there, then let us know, because we want guys that have good reputations and that basically you can pick up the phone, say, here's the problem, and they go take care of it. And we're not babysitters, because we don't use those kind of vendors. So anyway, so you wanted to start the show off and talk about some of the things going on in our RIA, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, we can go ahead and talk about our RIA stuff coming up. So there's going to be some dates here that I'm going to name off. But again, lonestarria.org is where all this information is. We have some focus groups coming up. We have a women's only group. It's called the Wire Group. It's going to be meeting on April 21st, and they meet at Live Oak Bar and Grill over there off of Hempstead Road. And the address is on the website. And on April 21st, we're going to have Adriana from Longhorn Investments, and she's going to talk about hard money and everything. In fact, that's one of our topics today is smart money.
Right.
And Longhorn is one of our vendors, so she's going to be talking there. And then we also have a landlord focus group. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer out there as far as the landlord focus group. The name can kind of be a little bit misleading, but if you're a wholesaler or rehabber, you want to become a landlord, you're welcome to join. It's not just for landlords. It's just going to be focused on landlording and, being a successful landlord.
Yeah, and Ro runs that, and she has rental properties of her own, so she'll be bringing up topics that relate to things that landlords need to know. And, if you're a flipper or wholesaler, one-third of the houses out there are owned by investors. So if you're in this business and you're helping people ultimately buy the houses, they could be 2/3 residential owner occupants, 1/3 are going to be investors. So you need to know what they need to know to do a good job, because you're putting that product online for them. So that's a good place to go and learn what's being done with real estate. And the Wire Group, I really like the Wire Group. Unfortunately, if you're a man, you can't go to it. That's against the rules. But Nikki will be running that, and
Well,
she's
wait a minute. You can go if you're a man. You just have to dress as a woman.
right. Yeah, you have to go. You have to go in drag. That's the rules. In fact, I found out that a man went to one of our Wire meetings, and I got kind of hot on that because, hey, this is supposed to be a safe place for women, not some dude coming in there asking a bunch of questions. So now the only exception is or I guess there's two. You either have to come in drag, or you're maybe a guest speaker. Then a man can come to that.
So those are the two groups, and I think for the landlord group on the 26th, that meets at Damaris Barbecue over there off of 610, and again, LoneStarREIA.org is where you can find this information. But I think you probably want to make an appearance at that next meeting to talk a little bit about one of the hottest topics right now, which is property tax protesting.
At the Wire Group, is that what you're?
No, the landlord group.
Okay. Well, I don't know what's on her schedule. I know that in the next, we were either going to do it there or do it at the general meeting. We were going to talk about property taxes. We have a lot of properties, and we deal with that. And if you're like me and you have property, your property taxes have gone through the roof. And we're going to really talk about that. There are some things you can do that actually work, and there's things that you can do are going to be a total waste of time. And so our goal is to work on the things that we can change. And, we've gone to arbitration a couple times, and we've had good results in arbitration. It's, you've got to put up money to go to the arbitration if you don't do good in the informal or the formal hearing. But there's very specific, very important things that we can do. We want to make sure we do those things, and we want to talk about those items. And anyway, so if whatever that date is, look at our website. Whenever I go out to talk about it, I'll share with y'all some of the experiences. And I've been protesting taxes for 30 years. Every year we go. The last couple of years, I've actually hired a person to do it because I think that they're even better qualified to do it than I am. And we'll talk to you about who we have do it. But it's not necessary that you have somebody do it for you. But there are certain things you're going to do, and I can just tell you from real experience, if you do them, they won't work. So just don't waste your time.
Yeah, and that will be one of our topics at our next May meeting, which is May 14th. And May 14th, we're super excited about. I actually did a post in one of our Facebook groups about it because we wanted to make the announcement today, and that is, we're going to do our meeting a little bit different on May 14th because we have such a lot of exciting stuff going on that we decided to do a little bit different. But we have Peter Fortunato is going to be coming in, and I'll let you talk about him in just a minute. But again, we're going to talk about the property tax protesting. And then we also have the National REIA rep for Home Depot is going to be coming in and talking about the different benefits and how to maximize your Pro Extra account tied in with the REIA membership because we are a chapter of the National REIA. And so mark your calendars for these dates. That I just went through. I'll run through them really quick. The Wire Group meets on April 21st. That's a Tuesday evening. Landlord Group, April 26th. That's a Thursday evening. And then the Saturday monthly meeting with, the different topics we just talked about, May 14th. So again, like I just mentioned, Peter Fortunato is going to be coming into town, and it's a little bit of a big deal there.
Yeah. About 10 years ago, maybe longer, I got the honor of introducing Peter Fortunato to the Rich Group, which is the Rich Club, which is, from what I understand, is out of business now. But we took over the chapter role that the Rich Club had before. And so we're tied in with the national chapter, which has about 45,000 members. And we have a lot of national benefits. And if we can, I'd like to talk about that Home Depot benefit for a minute. But during that era, I was a program director, and I've always been a big fan of Peter Fortunato, and I got to introduce him to the audience, which to me was an honor because Peter Fortunato, Jack Miller, and Jimmy Napier were like my three main mentors of people that influenced me the most. And actually, I learned from them, and I learned how to survive 3 or 4 downturns because of their creativity and their knowledge. And these guys, Peter Fortunato has been doing this since the 60s, and he's still out there. Jack Miller and Jimmy Napier both passed away. I think Peter's in his mid-70s, maybe 80 years old, going unbelievable. He'll wear you out. You won't. You'll have to take. We have to stop him and make him take breaks because he tries to get through the material and tries to cover it and go in the detail that he needs to go into. But knowing and understanding what Peter talks about makes you a phenomenal investor. And I don't know what else to tell you. I try to go to his stuff once a year. In fact, we just came back from a deal that he did in Florida. He's got another one going on in June. We'll go to that one. It's usually 2 days, but it's very intense 2 days. Make sure you bring a lot of coffee. You don't want to pass out, or don't eat pizza at lunch. The carbs will knock you out after lunch. But he just covers the material, and it's really about real creative real estate and how to talk to people, how to get people to do what you need them to do, what they need to do. So I can't say enough about Peter Fortunato. So definitely want to be there.
Yeah, so be there, bring a friend. If you know anybody that's interested, definitely bring them. And also another thing that, we were just on the phone with him yesterday, and he was like, bring your questions. I love answering questions. In fact, he wants to be challenged. He likes a challenge for somebody to see if anybody can bring a question he can't answer. Of course, it's got to be real estate related.
Well, as I've gotten to become more and more of a speaker, I don't want to go in a room and have a bunch of dead people looking me back. I want people to tell me I'm wrong. I want them to challenge me and test me and push me. And Peter's like that. And maybe I got that from Peter, because he was a major role model for me. What you might be wrong on. And there's that saying, it's not what you know, it's what you know that just ain't so. Mm-hmm. And unless you challenge, unless you test, unless you have sharp people around you pushing those boundaries, you're gonna go down a pathway maybe for 20, 30, 40 years. You have a very high probability of not being successful and getting to the finish line. And you can't do that in a vacuum. You can't be successful in a vacuum. You're going to constantly be testing each other. We just started 5 Airbnb, technically 4, almost 5. And the guy that really got me inspired to go on this is, 30 years younger than me. I've heard people talk about Airbnbs more than a lot, let's say, and I've never decided to convert any of our properties until I listened to him. And he challenged a lot of the things that I thought was right, and kept me from doing the Airbnbs. And he challenged me, and I said, you know what? It's worth the time and energy for me to take that risk and try to do some of these Airbnbs once I understood his numbers. But if he wouldn't have challenged me, or if he wouldn't have said, hey, no, this is why I think I'm right, I probably would have not gone down that path.
So again, just to recap, Peter Fortunato is going to be here May 14th. Mark your calendars for that.
We're trying to get him for an afternoon session too, right?
Yes,
because he's going to be the keynote speaker, and I think we've got him set up for an afternoon session.
Yeah, that's going to be free for members, and it's going to be like a small. I think it's $49 for non-members, something like that. But again, we have the information on our website, LoneStarREIA.org, and REIA is REIA, so it's LoneStarREIA.org. You can find the information there about the meeting. One of the things that we like to bring to our community, this organization is of investors, for investors, by investors. And we really take pride in providing the best education and the best information and bringing in the best speakers and everything. And that's and this radio show is an arm of that organization. And so today we want to talk, about, being a successful investor and what are some of the things that you need to make that happen.
Well, I want to tell you, when I was on the board of the Ridge Club, I would go to the National RIA and I would hang out with a bunch of the RIA leaders. And even now, we're in a mastermind group where it's 14 other RIAs. We meet 3 times a year. We have one of those meetings coming up where we just sit in a room. There's about 30 or 40 of us, sit in a room and just figure out what can we do to make investors successful. And what I see a lot of the local RIA groups doing, it's about the person putting the RIA on. It's all about that person. And it's natural for it to go that way because that person, whoever that person is, they're usually more experienced than the rest of the group, or generally more experienced, and they just default to that person all the time. So at those meetings, it's all about that person, and it's the Jim Smith show, or it's the John Doe show. And that's not what a RIA is. A RIA, Real Estate Investor Association, is working on behalf of the investors to get benefits to them, to help them be successful, build a program that helps them be successful. And you can't do that from one person, because one person has got that path. All they did is they bought 10,000 houses. Well, whoopee-doo. I mean, that's not just a path for everybody, and it's not the right path. So you have to have a lot of people who are being put in that stage, who are influencers, who are out there just like George was with the Airbnb. You got to get these people who are really kind of crushing it and being successful. And in real estate investing, a lot of that relates to marketing. A lot of it relates to specific knowledge, like Peter Fortunato. There's just so many different angles that we have to get right, just like landlording. We had Ernie Garcia speak to our group, and Ernie Garcia is, if you follow Ernie Garcia, you realize this guy really knows his stuff. He's out there every day in the business doing what he preaches, and we need those kind of people. Tax protesting, we need people who know how to get the tax protesting done. We brought a tax protester company in last month, and they talked about the different things that you can do and that you can't do. And so there's just so much for us to know, and it's not all in one person's head. So we don't want to be like everybody else, where it's the John Doe show. We don't want that. What we want is, if you have talent, you have resources, you know how to do certain things, we want to put you in front of the group and hear what you can help us learn and teach us.
Yeah, and that's part of, we like to call ourselves a community,
Yeah.
And it's about the community. It's not about Ray, it's not about me, it's not about our team. It's about the community and being successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people get that wrong. It's all about the person who's out on the stage and who started the association, and that's wrong. That doesn't work. That's not what helped me be successful in real estate. What helped me is hearing a lot of different voices and learning from people. Also, having those workshops, or we call them focus groups. Having those focus groups, the focus groups are kind of good because they become more personable, and people can talk and communicate with each other, and you can ask people things privately. It's not like somebody standing in front of a room. It's structured and controlled networking where you get the most benefit.
Yeah. And networking is really key, and we're probably going to end up talking about a little bit of networking here today, as far as one of the things to be successful. But you mentioned a few minutes ago, and I'm trying to rush the show along, and sometimes I kind of get ahead of myself.
Don't let Ray talk.
I kind of get ahead of myself sometimes. But you did mention a few minutes ago you wanted to spend a minute or two on Home Depot. What did you want to say about Home Depot? And then after that, we'll get into the different things.
Well, as being a national chapter RIA leader, a few years ago they flew us out there to Atlanta, so we got to meet the CEO of Home Depot. We've got to meet the guy in charge of contractor sales across the nation. In fact, some people say that what's helped Home Depot be successful is they learned early on they've got to put programs in place for contractors, because the contractors need their life to be easier, not more complicated. And if you're a person like I am that's done a lot of rehabs, dealing with the part suppliers is a hard. I mean, it's the hardest part. And setting up processes and systems where you can manage it and control it's good. And Home Depot's really done that. And we've pushed people to join Home Depot. If you're part of a national RIA chapter, which we are here in Houston and in San Antonio, then when you sign up and you put in that you're the chapter, then you get the chapter benefits. For example, things like you get money back every year, depending on how much you spend. I usually get a check back for several $1,000s. You get a 20% off all paint. They have cabinet lines that are designed for contractors to buy, just us investors. They've got so many different programs out there. Some of the best things they have is the way they do the accounting. Our accounting is super easy. I can have 5 or 6 contractors working in different places, and I just say on the PO, just put in the street. And then when we get that accounting, it shows how the expenses are broken down on each PO. And so we go in there, we clean it up a little bit. It doesn't take much work, and we know where we're spending money, when we're spending money, and it's the contractor that does it. We have another thing. It's called. We use it a lot. My son and I have it, and it's called text to approve. So if you go in there and spend $600 at Home Depot, they'll text me to approve it. If I get that text, I hit a URL, and then with that URL, I can look at everything you're buying. And if I don't approve something, I stop it right there. And once the people understand that we're watching what they're buying, they don't buy the skill saw or the sawzall or whatever, like, hey, that's on you, not me. You buy that.
Just a quick little story about that. Tom Berry was just our keynote speaker here in Houston and also in San Antonio.
Yeah, Tom's great.
Yeah, and his wife, Melissa, she does the accounting work. She goes through those and scrutinizes them. She says that if she finds even a soda on the receipt, she'll circle it, take a picture of it, and then he gets docked from the next draw. So you could really
we do the same thing. You have to do that if you're spending lots of money, and if you're not spending lots of money and you don't have another contractor, you still get huge discounts, and it still manages it good because you can say, hey, it's that job. And if anybody that's doing this part of the business, it's very challenging. And so having these little tools, in fact, I would do the Home Depot just because of their accounting is so superior, because when you're trying to find out how much you spent last week or last month or 8 months ago, you got a hard copy, basically a digital, but it's basically you have a copy of what went down and how it went down, and you can go back and look at those receipts. And if you're real active like I am, you have partners all the time that you're working with. You have multiple contractors you're working with, so it's a very valuable tool. And we last year, and I think it's for the last several years, Home Depot, the largest affiliate they have is the National RIA. And so as a chapter RIA, we're one of those affiliates. And so they are more interested in taking care of us. We spend over $1 billion at Home Depot every year. So they're very interested in taking care of us. And by the way, the managers are too. When the managers at Home Depot says, oh, I can't get that appliance that I promised to you 3 weeks ago, I'll say, well, I'm just going to talk to corporate and the contract sales and see what we can do. And all of a sudden they can get that appliance, or they can change it out for one of equal or better value.
Yeah, they, being a part of the National RIA, they definitely bend over backwards. I've experienced some things with Home Depot as well. But one other thing also is, going on the paint thing, for when you do get the 20% discount, but you can also save your paint colors.
Right.
So that if you do a rehab now and then, 2 or 3 or 4 houses later, you want to use that same color again, but you don't remember the name, Home Depot can look that up for you because they keep it in the system.
And make sure they do that. Tell them to do that. Yeah. They'll put it in the system, and not just for that occurrence, but if you have a house and say you need to go back and match that paint up a month from now or 2 months from now, you can at least get the same paint you had before with the same color.
Yes. All right. So was there anything else on Home Depot, or ready to get into the show? No. All right. So let's get into.
Wait, it's 9:30. You're just now getting into the show.
Well, we've been teasing. We're going to get to how to make.
Well, let me just tell you, if you don't come and see Peter Fortunato, and you don't let him change your life like he changed my life, then that little tidbit of information is extremely powerful. I don't care what level you are. There's nobody that I've met in Houston that operates on Peter Fortunato's level. And there's good reason, because Peter's been busy since 1960. He's basically a genius. He has been real active. He's worked with top-notch investors all across the country, and he talks the talk and walks the walk. So I don't know anybody in Houston as sharp, as smart as he is, and I'd bet anybody dinner after the afternoon session that if they weren't impressed and they didn't learn something that would change their life or help them do something better, I'll buy them dinner. I mean, I'm that convinced of it. Right. By the way, but if I'm right, you need to buy me dinner.
I was just going to say, is there a catch to that? So yeah, definitely come see us and be there for Peter. I'm looking forward to it. You know, this will be my first time hearing Peter speak in person.
I didn't finish the last part of that. I brought him in. I wanted to introduce him because I was a total introvert. At that time, I was not going to get up in front of the audience. But that day we brought 200 people in. And at the end of 2 days, he's the only person at the end of a 2-day event that I've ever been to that got a standing ovation. That's how good he is. And if you're just starting, it'll be overload. Trust me. But the good thing is you'll go down the right path early. If you've been doing this 5 or 10 years or 20 years, you're definitely going to change how you do your business when you listen to Peter.
On that note, you know, being an overload, because it wasn't that long ago that I was new myself, and I still consider myself fairly new. Some of this stuff you got to hear over and over again. I mean, even me and Ray have been really close for 9 years, and I still, you know, will jump on the coaching call and listen to him, you know, or if we're doing the live stream, I enjoy those because I'm still listening and trying to hear it and pick up something.
And sometimes, like, you don't, if Peter talks about how to solve a problem you haven't had, it doesn't really make sense. But when you've had that problem, or when you have that problem in the future, just having that information in your head is like, oh, wait, Peter says don't do that. That's stupid. Do this. And then and hearing it 5 or 6 times, that is so true. If first of all, every time you hear something, you're a different person than the last time you heard it, especially if any length of time's gone by. You know, if a month's gone by or a year. That's why, like with Peter, I go to his stuff every year just because it doesn't matter. I'm a different person, and he's a different person. And the rules, the games that we're playing, we're having a big change in the economy and the market right now, right before our eyes. And a lot of us are like, hey, it's going to go this way. It's going to go this way. And a lot of smart people are disagreeing on this. I mean, really smart people that I look up to are disagreeing on this. And it's hard to say who's right, but we need to think about it. We need to understand what's going on. And so the rules are constantly changing. You need to be around smart people if you're going to do smart things.
So what, from your perspective in this changing market, because you have been, you know, through, maybe not through the exact what we're going through now, but you've been through changing markets. And
you know, they say it's not, but man, this is looking an awful lot like the 80s to me. You know, the misery index that President Carter invented. So super high interest rates. I hope that doesn't happen.
I hope so too, but we'll just have to wait and see. But what do you see as far as, you know, somebody new or somebody that wants to take their, you know, investing to the next level? What do you need as an investor to be successful in times like this?
You mean like somebody that's just starting, or somebody that's like been doing this for a while?
It could either be somebody that's, you know, just starting, or they could have been in it, you know, just a few years. They want to move to the next level.
I think as I look at all the up cycles and down cycles, and Jack Miller, who I really admire and look up to. In fact, most of the gurus out there, the real gurus out there today, they were Jack Miller alumni. I mean, they were sitting in the audience listening to Jack Miller because Jack Miller was really pushing the boundaries. I think, and he said this, I think the people that figure out how to buy and hold on to property ultimately end up being the winners. One of my best friends, he does owner financing and he does buy and hold. But he started doing owner financing because the advantages to owner financing are that when you have that, you've got that income stream and you don't have any liability and you don't have any responsibility. Like right before this call, I got a message that an air conditioner is down on one of our properties. So if you're owner financing, you don't get that call, right? It's not your problem. Well, when I reached out to him, I won't say his name. He's probably listening, but I said, well, how many millions of dollars do you think you lost by doing owner financing in the last 2 years? And the bottom line is, in fact, we had a speaker come in, one of our speakers last month. We did the math. She made $1.2 million in appreciation last year because of the rental properties. And so if you buy and hold, even if we don't have appreciation, the tenants are paying off the house for you, right? And so at some point in the future, whatever you pay for that asset's being paid off. And you can do it fast, you can do it slow. There's all kinds of ways to speed up the process. But it's nice to wake up one day and buy something a while back and there's no equity in it, and then one day you wake up and you own it free and clear. Or your equity numbers go through the roof. There's houses 3 years ago they're selling for $150,000. That same house is selling for $230 or $240. So just buy and hold just seems to be a formula that works. And we got to be smart. And one thing is, you can't just buy and hold for the sake of holding. You've got to always be improving your inventory. If you can hold less assets, maybe not so many, and be all over the place and have some really bad assets, those are probably not things we want to hold on to. So we want to clean them up. We want to keep it clean. And what happens as an investor is people want to buy your best assets first, and they don't want to buy the bad assets. So if you're not paying attention, and this has happened to me, I think it happens to every investor, you're stuck with the bad assets and and the good assets are gone because somebody was willing to pay high dollar, top dollar for them. And really what we want to do is we want to hold on to the good assets. And a good asset isn't a house that your wife would move into. I don't mean that as a good asset. A good asset is an asset that's going to maintain its value. It's going to maintain its desirability. If you have tenants in it, then the tenants are going to be the kind of tenants that will help you take care of it. So that eliminates that $500,000 house, right? Because that person renting the $500,000 house is not even going to open the breaker box, right? So we got to get the right types of properties, and we've got to get them in the right places. And then if one of those properties stop being in the right place, then get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Take whatever you get in that, exchange it into a better place. By the way, we're going to try to get Mansour. He doesn't know this. He is a 1031 exchange facilitator. We're going to try to get him on the May 14th meeting. And I don't think we had time to ask him, but I wanted y'all guys to get him out there because there's a lot. If you don't understand what exchanging is and you have assets, then you need to understand that better. And I think we're looking towards starting an exchange focus group. Tom wants to do that. So that's on the drawing board, but.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. I'm in the process of reaching out and talking to Mansour.
Okay,
so he'll probably be there. He likes to come talk to our group and everything. So,
well, he's with Transact Title, and they allow us to use their space, and they really support us, and we're doing everything we can to support them because they do all my closings. They solve problems that they probably shouldn't have to solve, but you need good people on your team.
So we were also talking, we've talked several times, about this acronym that we like to use, and it's called CALM, but it's not spelled the traditional way. It's KALM, and those letters are K is for knowledge, A is for attitude, L is for leads, and M is for money.
Yeah, we like to call it Be Calm. And you never say that. I don't think you like that, but Richard picked up on it right away, and he likes it. So you're outvoted. It's 2-1.
Hey, I never said I didn't like it. It's just I'll try to incorporate Be Calm.
Yeah,
in there. It's just I just say the acronym. So what did you want to say about Calm? I know one of your favorite letters is is A? I mean, I know you like them all, but
Well, I'll tell you, I talked to George yesterday, who is really crushing it in Airbnb, and he reminded, well, the first time I met George, he reminded me of a kid that was on my son's wrestling team in high school, and that kid had that attitude. You could just see that fire. And I remember he had lost a match in a regional final, and I went over, I could see he was really upset. I said, man, don't be upset. I mean, that was this year. Next year, you're going to go to state. And he did. And I said, you got the right attitude. I mean, people, if you don't have, and when I saw that, I thought, if you don't have that attitude, you need to get that attitude. And that guy's name was Rafian Stotts. He ended up winning national championship twice. And so get the attitude, be around the people that are doing what you want to do. You'll see who the winners are, and you start emulating them, and you get that attitude. Don't take no for an answer. Don't ever quit. It's the guys that quit, they don't learn how to be successful, because it's the last thing you do that overcomes that problem. And if you quit, you won't do that last thing, and you won't ever be able to compete with me, because I don't quit. And you won't be able to compete with other people that don't quit. So just don't quit. Stay with it. Have that attitude. If you don't know how to get through it, then reach out to other people. We're here all the time at our RIA meeting. We're there. We hang out. We go to lunch with people. If you have a problem with something you can't get over, bring the problem. We love problems. That's what Peter said. He thrives in problems. So
we like to, another thing that we like to say is, yes, we're real estate investors, but we're problem solvers. Mm-hmm. We just happen to use real estate to do that.
Because it pays. Yeah. I like solving problems that pay.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the things on the list that we had to talk about today is being connected. Get connected with with a tribe or group. With like the RIA and everything. So that would be one of the things to impact your success is to be connected. Don't try this on your own.
Yeah, there's too much. There's 1,000 ways to screw something up, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. In fact, engineers you and I were talking about that. I won't say the name, Richard, but engineers are the worst kind. They come to the table because they already operate at a high level. They usually have very high technical training. They operate at a high level, and they're very hard to change directions with. Sometimes you have to hit them over the head and say, no, do it like this. But I got so hung up on the Richard story, I don't even know what we're talking about. But
being connected.
Oh, yeah. So if you're connected, you're going to have people who won't mind telling you what they think, and you need to hear it. Tom out there, he's like that, and he'll tell me. If I say something, he'll say, well, I don't understand that. You're going to explain that to me, and you need to be around people who are not too worried about your feelings, but more worried about being successful.
Is that why we work so good together? Because we tell each other that every day.
Yeah.
So get connected, and then you got to know your strategy. You got to have an overall strategy, and then you got to kind of dive deep into that, as far as your buy strategy, exit strategy, things like that. Yeah,
so strategy, which you brought up a good point. It's basically what to buy and what your exit strategy is. That's the strategy can change. You might start out doing single family houses and decide that RV parks is the way to go. But you got to be close enough to what's going on, and you got to be around the people. Any place where they're networking, especially if it's structured networking, where it's not just you hanging out with your drinking buddy, but it's structured networking where you actually get to talk to the people, you find out what the other people are doing, you get to ask them specific questions. We love setting up structured networking because that forces everybody, because just think about half the world's introverts, half the world's extroverts. With structured networking, it gives the opportunity for the introverts to talk to the extroverts, or more importantly, the people who are doing wonderful things. If I sit next to you and you tell me that you own an RV park, I want to know how that works. I want to know what's involved in that. If you tell me that you you build energy efficient houses. I want to know like what's involved in that. How does that work? Why should I be interested in that? And I'll ask you like, why should I care about that? And you say, well, Ray, here's why you should care about it. Because if your tenant has an energy efficient house they live in, and they can afford more money outgo every month because they're not spending money on, say, a big mistake that I see people do is they'll convert their houses to electric. And I don't get that because electric's expensive. And so if it's a rental property, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep the gas in there if I can. But gas has got problems, and it may cost a little bit more money. But at the end of the day, I'm making a more viable product for my customer, which is my tenant, because my tenant's job is to do what?
Is to pay off the mortgage.
Right, pay off the house. That's their job. I hire them and I interview them and I make sure they're qualified.
So that, and then also another thing in the strategy, under the strategy umbrella is not only the type, but price point as well.
Yeah, price point and then of course exit. You know, just like a couple buddies of mine who I work with and I love to death, they went the owner finance route. Well, that's not looking so smart right now. You know, and I'm not saying one or the other is wrong, because if a person goes the owner finance route, they basically take that inventory off their plate and they put the repairs and upkeep and the problems, they put that on somebody else's plate. The other thing that happens is if a tenant moves in and he puts down a deposit of, say, equal to 1 month's rent, that's how much skin he's got in the game. If a owner finance person comes to the table and they put down $10,000, which may be 10 times the deposit, they got a lot more skin in the game. So it's a lot easier to get a better outcome with somebody that's got more skin in the game than when somebody has less skin. So there's some really strong reasons why we want to do owner finance. And so there's not a clear answer in my mind. And I've done both, and I've done both a long time. And I've seen in some cases it works better this way, in other cases it works this way. And we do have some general rules on which properties we want to owner finance. And I'll just tell you, I'll share that with you. The more difficult it is to maintain and control a property, the more we want to owner finance it. The easier it is to maintain it, the more likely it is to go up in value. We probably want to hold on to those as rentals. And then what do those houses look like? You know, you can get a 2-1 house on blocks in the hood. You can get, a 6-bedroom house with 4 bathrooms sitting on an acre, out in the rural part of town. And then when you do that, then what have you got? And so, what I learned from Jack Miller early on is like, we really, and John Schaub too, we really want to get the houses that most people want to live in areas that are going to continue to grow and still have continued demand. And so a lot of these guys that bought these houses for $100,000 because they bought them in the right areas, they're now worth $500,000. And there's no shortage of people standing in line wanting to buy them. And in fact, you look at what they're doing, and you're thinking, okay, let's just take this to the next level. And this is beyond the scope of this radio show, but at what point do you think about your return on your equity? Because now all of a sudden your rents are not keeping up with your equity. What is the rent got to be on a $500,000 house to get a decent return on equity? It's got to be pretty dang high.
Yeah, and back to something you just glazed over really quick. You said when you were talking about Tom, and how he's doing a lot of owner finance. It's not right or wrong for him to do it. Yes, he might be leaving money on the table in one aspect, but his life, I know he travels quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
so he doesn't have to manage the rental property. So it might work for him. So it really just comes down to each individual person of what they want, what their life goals are.
By the way, and that is structured by what you're trying to do and your age. Like a 40-year-old person probably should behave differently than a 65-year-old person. That person that's 40 years old, he's an accumulator. And a person that's 65 years old, he's an ender. And so that ender is like, yes, I do want to be in that motorhome 4 months out of the year. Or yes, I want to go and do things with my grandchildren, and I don't want to be answering the phone, or I don't want to be dealing with the tenants. So your strategy can be for the same person can vary depending on where you're at and what your needs are.
And it could change over time.
Yeah, with our coaching students, that's one of the things we do is we sit down with them an hour, and we do have 2 meetings when we bring somebody on. We first one, we just kind of find out where they're at. Then we come up with what we think is the best strategy for them, because oftentimes they don't really have a clear vision of what that should be. But sitting down, and one of the things and whether it's us or you doing it yourself, you got to say, like, what am I trying to accomplish? What kind of time do I have to work with? What resources do I have? And resources is a big question, because you may have resources you don't realize are very valuable. What tools do I have? What team do I have? So you got to answer those questions, and then you got to see where you fit.
That was actually on our list to talk about is, some of the things you need to be successful. And one of those was a coach.
Yeah. We all need coaches. I mean, if you look at a Super Bowl team, there's almost as many coaches on that team as there are players. And if you're going without a coach, I think you're messing up. Now, I don't know how you get the coach. If you can't afford the coach, you got to hang around and maybe move his luggage around for him and drive him, across town, or write a check. I don't know how I can't. Each one of us are different on how you get people to pay attention. But if you're getting the right coach, that person needs to be somebody that's out there every day doing what he preaches. So if you're really set on doing RV parks, like we said, you probably need to hang around somebody that's doing RV parks. We have a small mobile home and storage, but mostly houses. That's our claim to fame. So if whoever is doing what you want to do, then you need to get somebody that's doing that. And they don't want to work for free either, because they're out there their time's very limited if they're successful, and they're basically working on their projects. So unless you're going to be a part of their team, it's hard to encourage a coach to say, hey, stop and tell me what to do.
Yeah. And another just a little tidbit on the having the right coach. You like when I tell this story, I used to bowl competitively and always wanted to go pro. And I had a coach that took me to get my average to a little bit over 200. But he couldn't quite get me to where I needed to go on tour. So what I should have done is I should have hired a professional coach to get me there. So that's the.
Was he not a professional coach, or he was just like a friend? But
no, he was a very knowledgeable coach, but he was not a professional coach.
Right.
He works with the younger crowd. But he got me to where I was, and I just needed to take that next step.
Well, I'll just share with you, and sometimes it's not that. It's just a different approach to it. Sometimes it's you need help in a lot of different areas. The higher level you operate at, the more areas you need help in, and you need to be able to pick up a phone and say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We were a while back, we were doing individual coaching, and I didn't want to do that anymore, because every day I'm working on what we're working on our stuff, trying to make that work. I don't want to be able to just answer a phone call randomly for somebody I don't know. And so we decided to just do group coaching. And group coaching means that, hey, we're going to dedicate ourselves to 4 calls a month. We've got a library. We do that kind of stuff. So I'm willing to do that where it's planned, it's scheduled. But, I don't want to call for somebody at 9 o'clock in the morning when I've got 5 things going on, and it's just too hard to work with.
So if this is something that you're looking for, interested in working with us, LoneStarREIA.org. That's where you can get our information there, LoneStarREIA.org. And you can reach out to us, and we'll be happy to talk to you, or you can talk to us at our next meeting on May 14th. We do have just a few minutes left. We are getting rapidly close to the end of the show here. So one of the last things on our list is smart money. What do you have to say about smart money?
I'd like to say I've mastered money. I've been a major student of money for a long time. Just smart money, when we use that term, I'm just talking about, like, how do you keep money coming into your deals, and how do they stay in the deal? It doesn't really matter how much money you start with unless you're like a billionaire. you're going to run out of money. In fact, Elon Musk, I'm reading, he said he may not have enough money to buy Twitter, and so when we're doing these houses, you buy 10 or 15 houses, you have $1 million in the bank and it's gone real fast. It may be 2 million and it's gone real fast. So smart money is figuring out how to keep changing that money out. And that's why, our very first deal we ever did before Burr was Burr, we did a Burr deal and we didn't know it, but it's basically we put all our money into the deal and then we went to the bank, we refinanced it and got permanent financing, and then we just stuck that house in our inventory for 30 years and paid it off twice. And finally we sold it, and I'm not sure why we ever sold it, but finally we sold the dang thing, and that was the Burr method. So that's an example of smart money. You gotta constantly be focused on where to get money to do your deals, how to structure the money, use seller financing, owner financing options, do all these things when you can, and when you can't, then have a plan B. In fact, Elon Musk said that. He says he has a mysterious plan B. None of us know what the plan B is. I'd like for somebody to tell me, because I really want to know now. It's like what's behind the door. But I'm
sure we'll see it.
But you got to have a plan B, and that's where the smart money comes in. Sure, some things are real obvious, and what happens when they don't work out? Like, what if you borrow hard money, but you find out you want to keep that house? So where are you going to get that money from? So just figuring out how to work the money, work hard money lenders, work institutional lenders, work private lenders. So anyway, I know you need to wrap up.
Yeah, and there's also subject to and creative financing, all sorts. If you're not learning about creative financing, you're missing the boat. And again, join us on May 14th. Peter Fortunato, we got Mansour coming. We're going to talk about property tax protesting, and Home Depot is going to be there. Again, we're trying to make this the best we can for our community. We're working really hard. LoneStarREIA.org. That's LoneStarREIA.org. That's where you can get our information. And we look forward to hearing from you and helping you with your problems in your real estate, and also seeing you at our next meeting. That's our show. We will see you later.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Massive Passive Show, where we teach investors how to get off the hamster wheel of transactional real estate. Hi, I'm Becky Fields, president of the Greater Houston REIA, and would like to invite you to join us at our regular monthly REIA meetings on the second Saturday morning each month. If you're in the San Antonio area, the Alamo REIA meets on the evening of the second Tuesday each month. Go to LoneStarREIA.org for more information. We would love to see you there.